What up, what up, what up? Good morning. Welcome to Inside High School Hoops with my main man, Ani. We're going to get straight to it today. We got some great guests. Ani's got all kinds of content. Yeah. We episode 5, actually. That might actually be incorrect. We're actually episode 5, so excuse me for the misprint. We're going down episode 5. We got some special guests. Tim Littlefield out of San Antonio. We got Blue Zaturchi from Texas Hoops, the one and only. So looking forward to it. We're going to let Ani kind of get straight to it, talking about the Hoop Fest first. That was kind of the big news. State of Texas over the weekend. Glenn Smith put on another great event. Glenn was a guest on our show a few weeks back, and he talked about it. And so now we'll let Ani kind of talk about what happened out there. Wait a minute. One thing quick. We want to give much love and praise report to Keontae Johnson from Florida. Lots of prayers out for him. So glad that he is starting to get back to full recovery, and definitely never want to take things for granted. You know, we're so glad he's healthy, so glad he's back, recovering and talking to his team. So all that being said, want to make sure I give a quick shout out to Foreverland, Dallas, Texas. Got to represent. Yeah, shout out Brittany Graham. So, let's let Ani get to it. Ani, tell us about the Hoop Fest.
So went down to Houston. This was after I went to I had my trip to Memphis. But like I said, Glenn Smith ran a real big time showcase with Holiday Hoop Fest, and it was out in the Fertitta Center, which I love being in the Fertitta Center, even when I was watching U of H games. Just big time atmosphere. So it was really good to be out there. Really strong matchup with Shadow Creek and Tascasita. Tascasita won by 3. Big time performance by Ramon Walker. I think he had 28 points. U of H signee.
Yeah, U of H signee.
At 28 points. I mean, he was clear-cut the best player on the floor, I would say. Had a big time performance, getting to a mid-range game, making threes, using his body. Ramon, in the summer, he had that quarantine weight on him. Now that he cut it off, and he started to like the player we know he could be. So
is he the best player in Houston right now, Ani? As far as the class?
Yes. No, absolutely, he is. And I think he's proven that. He's proven that with his play, over the years, and especially now, just the way he's looking and the way he's performing right now. I mean, no doubt about it. Then you got Tascasita, which is led by, you have a multiple guys that really contributed. You got Justin Collins, a 2021 kid, who would come to our Texas boys basketball camp. Lefty, wiry lefty that can really get to the rim, hit 2 or 3 threes, which I didn't really know he could shoot it that well. And he shot it with a lot of confidence. So Justin was just big time. La Tech signee Caleb Stewart kind of struggled a little bit offensively. I did like the stuff he was bringing to the table on the defensive end, just leading, talking. I was sitting right behind the bench or right next to the bench, and just kind of hearing him talk to his team, encourage him, even when Shadow Creek was making a run, he was just really, really encouraging. So that was a good look. They just had an array of guys as a kid. Ashton could really shoot the ball. Really hurt him, just shooting from deep, and just Tascasita is just so well coached. Coach Martinez does a hell of a job with his boys. They defend, they play the right way. So that was a really good game. Also for Shadow Creek, you had Cam Ambery, 2022, who started to grow. Like grows a little bit every time I see him. It's a crafty guard that can shoot. He just gives them really steady play at the PG spot. Managing pace. Getting the ball to the right guys. He was a bigger reason. Not as loud like a Ramon, because Ramon's really scoring the basketball, but just Cam just keeping everyone steady and getting initiating the offense and stuff like that. And really, Cam was really defending, being active when they were pressing up. So that was that game. Tascasita won by 3. Then the finale, you had Legacy.
Those that don't know, Tascasita's home of Carson Edwards, who played at Purdue, now is a Boston Celtic. He played at Tascasita along with the big fella at Houston, who's unfortunately sitting out right now. Fabian White, he also played at Tascasita. lot of great players come through Atascocita. Coach Martinez might be the best coach in the state with his body of work and what he's continued to do, especially now that Coach Dyer, his mentor, has retired. And obviously Coach Peavy can't go be remiss without putting him in that same conversation. But Coach Martinez at Atascocita has been doing it longer. Coach Peavy's only been at Deltonville for this is his third year now, but what he's done in 3 years, he's put himself in the category up there too. So I wanted to say that real quick. Go ahead, Ani.
No, absolutely. When we go into the second game, you had Legacy versus Yipsy Prep. So Monty Bates makes his second.
He made a comeback. How was the reviews? Was it better? Was it not?
It was better at first. At first it was not looking good. I was like, man, I think he needs to start coming to Texas. That's like Legacy. Yeah, no, it was rough at first. The Legacy got a 10-0 run. He got ripped in the half court. Aaron Scott dunked it, and it got a little rowdy, But Amani, players, especially really confident players, don't really get bothered by that. And he started getting it going. I think he ended up with 26 points, a couple rebounds, few assists, a couple steals, pass deflections. It was a good game. It was a good game, especially in the beginning. Legacy played with a lot of energy, and that's one thing. PJ Kuznar, how he's always done with all his players, from with the Kuz lead and now with Legacy. Even when they weren't as talented, they play hard. They play with a lot of energy. All right, and then when they're getting
PJ is a Wichita State alum who was a really good player at Wichita State, so he's bringing that same toughness, that same energy that he played with and that they had to play with back at Wichita State. He's brought that to Kuz Elite and now to Legacy. So great matchup. Yeah, tell us more.
Yeah, so Jonathan Massey was pretty solid early. That's McNeese State signee, kind of using his body, being physical on the defensive end. Aaron Scott was doing well. He's a 2021 unsigned senior, so long, lanky, wing forward type. Gets into his mid-range game. Was actually now as an on-ball defender has really improved just with his overall intent and just active with his hands and disrupting passing lanes. So, Aaron Scott's he looked pretty good just overall, just showing both his just two-way capabilities. So Isaac Heron is another 2021. He had 3 big-time blocks. I don't know if he even scored a point, but those 3 blocks, those were 3 high major blocks, right? I mean, just getting it at his peak, just swatting it out. Against guys that have high major size and athleticism. So Isaac Heron stood out. PJ Neal for Legacy was good too. Was perfect from the floor. I think it was like 5 for 5 from the field, and then 2 for 2 or 3 for 3 from the free throw line. So PJ was very efficient. He's a kid that also signed to Prairie View for Legacy. And then Yipsy Prep Amani, like we talked about earlier. There's another kid, Marlon Barnes, 2023, 6'6", and can really shoot the basketball. Kind of remind me a little bit of a young Moses Moody in some ways, just with size and shooting touch. He was really sound for them. And then a couple other kids. The 2022, I forgot his name. His name drove a blank for me. He was a guard. He was the main point. I know they have him like top 50 in the country. He definitely was just real steady, strong. Used his athleticism. He was also a big reason that Yipsy Prep came back in this one. But Yipsy Prep ended up winning by I want to say about 14 points. It got to the league, got to as big as 20. Legacy fought back some. But it was a good evaluation game too. I mean, overall, just those 2 games are good evaluation games.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else from the Hoop Fest before you kind of talk about your trip to Memphis that stood out to you?
You said what?
No, anything else from the Hoop Fest before we talk about Memphis?
Yeah. No, I was really excited, for the first time. Glenn having this holiday Hoop Fest, I think is something that you could really build from. And I think it can be just as big time as Thanksgiving Hoop Fest. Now there's going to take some waves for that. Thanksgiving Hoop Fest is, is a very, very strong brand. And, you're playing American Airlines Arena. But I like where the Holiday Hoop Fest, for the first year, this is really strong. And we're in a pandemic, right? And I like where it can go forward.
Yeah, and how great for U of H to be able to have an event like that on their campus, in their gym, to get one of their future players this year and Ramon Walker starring on the stage. But, Houston doing a good job of making sure they keep the Houston kids home. I think they've done a great job of that, and even bringing some of them back like Quentin Grimes to make Houston kind of that spot to be in the city. So let's talk about your trip to Memphis. I know you went down the road, got on the highway, put on some road miles. Let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, luckily I didn't have to drive. That was fantastic. Shout out to my driver.
Even better. The driver.
Yeah,
hold on. Let me pause it. Shout out to the driver. I don't know if everybody caught that, but that's Ani moving up. That's Ani moving up.
Nah, that's not it. That was me. Asking can I ride with y'all. That was just a simple question. I'll pay for gas. I'll pitch money in for gas or whatever I got to pitch money in. But no, you drove over there for the Iverson Classic. iSchool was in it. Bartlett High School, Arlington High School, J.D. Davidson School. I couldn't really pronounce it right. Was there? Those are several, notable Memphis schools that were there. Biercrest and all of that. But going out there, first game was Tennessee Prep in iSchool. Tennessee Prep had a couple guys. My guy Harold Rayford. That have a chance. That are Division I prospects. Kind of the guy that stole the show, and is you can say is the top player in the state of Texas. And my eyes, he is. With Big Vince being in La Lumiere right now, is Keontae George, and he had 32 points, made 8 threes. He defended really, really well. Keontae this season, he's having really, really sound defensive performances in multiple ones, and that was something in the past that was just a struggle for him to understand just the importance of playing defense on a consistent basis, and he's doing that. He's really just so smooth as a shot creator, shot taker. I mean, anytime he touches the ball and releases, you feel like it's going in. So Keontae just has this effortless way of just scoring the basketball with his athleticism. The kid that was actually playing well for iSchool, Cruz Davis. And I say that like, he hasn't been playing well, and he's really been up and down for Cruz this season. It's been more of a, I wouldn't say struggling, maybe too strong of a word, but there have been struggles. And this was the first weekend. I see Corey. This is the first weekend where I saw stringer performances from Cruz that was really, really big time. I think he had like 16 points the first game, then he had 12 points the next game, and just was getting to the basket. He wasn't settling for threes like I've been seeing him. He's just really trying to get his rhythm back offensively, and I think he's starting to understand his role better, which is leading to better basketball play. There's another kid that got on my radar in this 2022, Jaden Callaway. For iSchool, 6'7", real long, every bit of like 6'9", 6'10". I think the kid's still going to grow some more. Just an agile, lanky, forward that just, he's going to dunk. When you give it to him on dump offs, he's going to rebound, he's going to block shots, he's going to play with a lot of energy. And for a 2022 kid, kid with that size, and he looks like he's going to grow because he's, and he's just so raw, so there's so much room for improvement. Definitely was impressed by him. Then with Tennessee Prep, they had a kid, James Filipino, 2021, big fellow, just real smooth, gets to the rim, can finish off either shoulder. Another kid, Jalen Brown, another 2021 kid that was really impressive. I mean, just like a lanky, skinny guard, but just really gets the spots, deceptive first step. Was really finishing around the rim, keep the defense honest by hitting timely threes. And then another kid, Latrell Blocker, just really thrived in transition, finishing above the rim. Crafty, knows how to finish through length and through contact. So I was impressed there. I think the best game I got to see was in the next day where you had Bartlett high school who was hosting the event. That they're the school that, or that's where the venue was, and then you had high school, and Bartlett has a kid, Amar Knox, who recently that day got an offer from Memphis. So you got an in-city kid getting an offer from Memphis, and then right next to you, right next to you, you got Keontae George, and that was a really good matchup. Amar ended up with like 28 points. Keontae ended up with like 24, 25, but it was a real strong back and forth battle. High school ended up winning by like 3 points. Amar Knox, he's a kid that's starting, at first people were like, Memphis, maybe too high for him, but he really showed, he has all the tools and has all the capabilities of being a high major player. Long, really, really quick first step, gets to the basket, confident shot taker, can get to his mid-range game, defend. And it was just really good, him and Keontae just going at each other. Keontae was just, again, just an effortless scorer. And he makes plays that you're like, damn, how many kids in the country can make that play? And so it was a really, really strong matchup. I would say it was the matchup of the night. This is my first time getting to see J.D. Davidson, who committed to Alabama. I saw his school play. They play Arlington High School. And J.D.'s really, really talented. You can see that's just the overall ability with him. Strong, athletic guard, shifty off the bounce. He's athletic. He makes plays above the rim, even rebounds above the rim. But it's my first time seeing JD, and you can definitely see where the talent, you can see the ability. Now just him consistently putting it together. And, I did see some up and down play, but teenager, so it happens. But you definitely see the ability with him. But that was really my time in Memphis. I got to see Arlington High School, Madison Peaster, who's a kid from Arkansas, originally from Arkansas. I got to see him and see him play. It's been a while. He looked really good. There was a big fella out there in Arlington High School that was really, really, really intriguing. I'm going to keep looking at him some more, see how he develops. You can tell he just hit a growth spurt, and they said he was 6'3". Now he's 6'9". So, those are the type of kids, a year or two from now, you just, you never know where they end up.
6'3" and 6'9", big difference.
Yeah. He had the Anthony Davis growth spurt.
Quick shout out to Stacey Houston. He said he's back in the building. The Prince, Ani Umana, definitely had a driver take him to Memphis. Sunglass face. I love it.
Yeah.
So we're going to change up a little bit of how we're going to do this. We're going to go Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, East Texas, all at once, and then over the next 30 minutes with Tim Littlefield, another member of the Allen Branch Texas boys basketball squad. Him and Ani both. So we're going to let them take over the next 30 minutes and just talk about Texas, period. We're going to let them kind of make the run, and then we'll go straight to Blue from Texas Hoops. We'll come on in about 30 minutes, and then we'll talk kind of a little bit of everything with him. We'll talk about his new rankings that come out. We'll talk about evaluation and what they've kind of done in Texas Hoops and how they've established that, and we'll kind of go all the way through it. So it'll be great. Look forward to it. We're going to take a quick 30-second maybe break, and then we'll bring in Tim Littlefield. I want to take time to acknowledge one of our partners, Rising Coaches. Every coach wants to rise in their career in one way or another. We're all looking for professional development, access to tools, and relationships that can help us grow and help us advance in our career. Rising Coaches provides just that. You can visit Rising Coaches at www.risingcoaches.com. Their memberships are just $10 a month and provides a genuine community to help you grow and advance in your career. Tim, good morning. Welcome to the show.
What's going on, fellas? How y'all doing?
Good, man. Great to have you on. I know. Yeah, we got Tim in the building. So for those that don't know, Tim's out of San Antonio. He is one of the gatekeepers of basketball in San Antonio, now working with Allen Branch and Ani with Texas boys basketball. So I'll let him introduce himself real quick, and then we'll just let these guys, Ani will lead the way and let these guys go through East, West Texas first, Houston, Dallas, in whatever order Ani wants to, and then sneak in San Antonio, Austin. So Tim, if you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got connected to these guys, and then also what you do in San Antonio.
So for me, it's it's been a journey. I can say that. Been doing grassroots basketball all the way back since I first into school back in like '95, all the way back in Austin, coaching with guys Larry Alexander and a couple of other guys. When you start talking about Memphis, Omar Sneed and guys like that automatically, start coming to mind because, I had the opportunity to kind of work with those guys. Chris Clack, who was from Austin, wound up going over to University of Texas, coaching those guys, with Austin Fast Break. And then wound up getting a high school coaching job in actually in the late 90s. So from there, I always still had a passion for summer basketball. So I always still tried to stay connected to be able to help not only kids I was directly affiliated with, but also being able to help other kids, and other opportunities, based on connections I was making along the way. So that's always been, my biggest thing is being able to reach back, help out the kids who are less fortunate or don't have the opportunities or experience that, some others may get. So for me, it's always been, being a now former high school coach, trying to dig back, helping the high school coaches here in the area, do things, keeping their kids sharp, but then also keeping a pulse on seeing what's going on in case coaches called in this area, wanting to know who's doing what or who's coming up the ranks. Because as you well know, this area here stays, under recruited a little bit.
Yeah, so we me and Brian, we've had Antonio on the show, we've had Lupe Nunez on the show, we've had John Smith on the show. So they talk about San Antonio being under recruited, and I absolutely agree with that. So can you talk about what's your reasons you think we're under recruited?
Lupe talked a little bit about it last week, and it was accurate in terms of how it kind of goes in phases. I mean, you have to have players here. I mean, we talked about it, all the time. It only makes sense if you're coming here for 5 or 10 players, then it makes sense, to get in the car or get on a plane and come down. But if you're only coming for 1 or 2 at that particular time, then, it's kind of a wasted trip, so to speak. So now you're trying to figure out how to get your money's worth out of it in terms of packaging the whole trip together. So it goes in phases for sure. And so sometimes, people are trying to find out when it's hot and when it's cold, because it does go hot and cold right now. It's kind of up and down, top player in the city, Jason Jackson, 21, going off to UTRGV. But the other kid that's kind of, in some people's eyes, kind of behind him in the area, Gavino Ramos, is going over to St. Edwards. And I mean, I feel like St. Edwards is a quality program. I mean, they
absolutely
do good things.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, you kind of look at the balance. And it's not to say that there's that big of a gap in between players, but it just, when you start looking at the margins and the range that players could go, you start talking about D2 to low or something in that range, So that's the reason why right now. And then also from a class standpoint, we were looking at it the other day, and I was actually just taking down notes, kind of prepping for the show. The 21 class in this particular area took a significant blow. When you got a guy like Langston Love who packs up his bags and goes out to Montverde, I mean, and you can't blame him. I mean, when you start looking at opportunities to help, you and your family, and it's beneficial all the way around, I mean, you can't blame a kid like that. You got Zach Clemens that goes out to Findlay initially, and then works his way back to Sunrise. Jarrell Colbert leaves to a school in Memphis. I mean, that's just a list of them. Sam Oyemad, who some people probably like, he was there.
Yeah, I forgot.
Arrived here. Sam Oyemad was here. And so when you get a kid like that leaves your area, so now all of a sudden it causes a pause. Hey, what's going on down there? Should I come in there? Or the players still there? Well, yeah, they're here. They're just a little bit scattered. So, in the area, you got KJ Adams that's at, Westlake that's going off to Kansas. And then they got another 21 in the Austin area that's really good, Aaron Jacobs. So, like I said, it's hot and cold. Just have to depend on, where you're going to go find players.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned a kid's name, Aaron Jacobs, who I got to see a little bit, but want to get your analysis on Aaron Jacobs. He's a kid that moved in. Just talk about, a kid that, moved in and everything like that.
So I think, looking at him, because we were able to have him in our fall classic that we had, in October. So we were able to get a good look at him there. And he looks really, really fluid, kid at about 6'7", 6'8", that really, really shoots it really clean, can get it off the bounce, can kind of get to his spots. But then the thing I like about him is he's versatile. He doesn't mind getting downhill, doesn't mind, creating for other players, on his team. So that's the thing I like about him. I think a lot of times when people come from other areas, especially like, in the Midwest or the West Coast or the East Coast, it's an adjustment period to how we play here in Texas, and it's a little bit different, and I say that because, I'm deeming Texas, is the new Mecca. I mean, we got a really good group of kids that are coming up all the way from 22s all the way up 25, even the 26 class that we're digging down into to kind of see some of those kids. So it's going to be real interesting. But to go back to my point, I think it was a little bit of an adjustment period, but now that he's kind of figured it out, he's put up some solid numbers.
Do you think it's adjustment, like, so when kids kind of move from different areas, you think it's adjustment just on the physicality? Because that's one thing I kind of see early on is that, it gets real physical. It gets really physical over here. Part of that I always believe is just because we're real big in football as well. A lot of these kids grow up playing football and basketball. It just kind of, I feel like it kind of translates a little bit to the basketball court. I may be wrong on that, but what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I like the question. I think, from this, I would say, for the most part, most kids here in Texas at some point in time were a 2 or 3 sport athlete. Right. Whether they picked up the basketball and, like you said, play football, run track or do some other different things. And so obviously, as they're growing up, 7th, 8th, 9th grade, then you got weight training and different things like that that start to come into play. And so now bringing that physicality from the football field over to the basketball court, some of it does translate. So kids that, are able to adapt a little bit sooner to that, obviously benefit from it. Looking at a kid, now that we kind of say that, I was sitting up with another guy the other night watching Jamron Keller play from Killeen Ellison, and he stands out. We're kind of looking at him from a football build standpoint. He's like, man, does this kid play football? I said, no, not more. But you look at him, his physicality, it really was the difference in the game. I mean, he was a true dude in that game, and it was simply because of what we're talking about, the physicality that he brings.
Right. Jamarian has been a kid into 2023 that I would say the past 3 months have been really, really strong for him. He had a good summer with Drive Nation, but just, he's built like a running back. You think he's a running back, but he's just he's a power athlete, just gets downhill, finishes strong. And you know what? He's a fairly sound passer. Most kids that look like him or kind of have that play style, they generally just, head down, go to the rim, can't really see his peripherals, doesn't even care for his peripherals, but he actually sees the floor fairly well. I think he can be someone that you can be comfortable with him being in the primary ball handler role. And he's just a kid that's just been impressive. Wound camp, he was really good. He's athletic. I think he has like a 37-inch vertical or something like that. I mean, just a big-time athletic
all that was on display the other night, and it's ironic that you talk about that. Your analysis is on point about him being able to kind of see the floor. He had a couple of passes, in transition that were kind of like, okay, whoa, he saw that, and it had to be a split-second decision that he saw it just to kind of get it there. But then the other thing is Killeen Ellison ran a couple of sets to get their post open, and he was very solid at post feeding, which is kind of one of those things that, guards have a hard time with from time to time if they don't spend some time at it or really kind of figure out angles and how to actually, get space to get guys the ball, and also on the opposite end, post guys, holding guys off to be able to get the post entry. So he was solid with that. But then when you say downhill, he had a couple where he just decided this is where I'm going, this is where I'm going to get, and he finished at the rim. I mean, it was, it was solid. I mean, he really is the head of that engine for sure.
No, absolutely. Even in the summer with that Drive Nation group, he was. Jamarian, just a kid that grew on me. When you see those kids at a young age, you do get a little concerned because you're wondering, okay, is he going to go the ball route? Like, you have people asking you, or is, how well does the body, just continue to hold all that, playing basketball? Because sometimes I've seen guys with, more football, sturdy bodies in basketball that could bodies kind of break down a little bit, especially when they do play football in the fall. So I was kind of wondering that early on, about a year and a half ago, but, he stood the test time. He's good. He's really, really good. And, he's a kid that you say he's a top 8 to 10 player in the state of Texas.
Two-way guy. I mean, I love it. Defends the whole floor. I mean, he had no problem with that. actually shot it a lot better. You know, I know a couple of times, you know, when we saw him during the summertime, that was kind of the question mark. Okay, is he going to be able to do this, you know, on a consistent basis?
Right.
But now, you know, people are backing off, you know, thinking he's just going to try to get downhill, but he's knocking that down. So now he's becoming a more complete player along with his passing ability. So he's definitely doing some good things for himself.
So I want to talk about as we talk about I talk about box score stats. I don't know if you were at the Antonian and Austin Westlake game. I believe you were, but seeing the stats on that, especially KJ Adams, and shout out to Antonio. I think Antonio is 10-0 now or 11-0.
People don't understand how good of a coach Rudy Bernal is. And I mean, you know, unless you really kind of have been in the San Antonio area, he had San Antonio Lanier in the state tournament 2 years in a row. So they lose to Dallas Lincoln, and then they turn around and they lose to Kendrick Perkins and Beaumont Ozen at the time. So I mean, you know, when you're looking at pros, I mean, this is what he was up against. But I mean, you know, he was slaying giants well before his time in terms of, you know, coaching over at San Antonio Lanier. Had those guys playing really, really hard. So that's who's coaching Antonio right now. And he has 3 solid guards. He's got Xavier Martinez, who is a very, very crafty kid. I mean, the kid here kind of gets to his spots really shifty, can shoot it really good. Then he's got the Gavino Ramos kid that we talked about earlier that's going off the St. Ed's. I mean, Gavino, not always going to pass the eye test, but he is solid as it comes. I mean, as far as playing from the neck up, he gets it done. He sees the floor, gets others involved, but then you back off. He's shooting it from 30 to 35 feet, as I think you kind of saw him do down when we were in Austin watching the watching the ASAC Classic that they had going on down there. So he plays. He's fearless. You know, he's going to fill up the stat sheet. Then they have Santiago Ochoa. And then I said 3 good guards, but they really have 4 in Brian Armstrong. You know, he's got now coming out of football and is really playing solid for them. So it's not by any means a shock that their record is looking the way that it is. And, you know, they're solid. I mean, I see them probably being in the Final Four in the TAPS division.
Absolutely. I don't know if they're in the same TAPS division as John Paul II, but I would love to see that matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be a really, really fun matchup. You talk about 2 good coaches, Dan Lee, who at John Paul II is a good coach too. So that would be just a really good game to watch.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about let's talk about KJ Adams, you know, Kansas signee. He's been very, very impressive. I haven't had the chance to watch Austin Westlake, so I want to kind of get your analysis on that.
KJ is really expanding his game. I mean, he's really kind of doing some things, and there's something that I saw him kind of implementing a little bit last year, trying to do more off the bounce, but then also, you know, stretching the floor a little bit, you know, trying to show that he's a true stretch forward type kid that can also put it down. I mean, he gets downhill. Westlake, you know, another well-coached team, they do a really good job with him, putting him in situations where he can see the floor and kind of take advantage of what he really, really wants to do. So he can get downhill. He's physical. He's playing through it. Alan and I sat down with him. We watched them play against Duncanville day before Thanksgiving. So we saw that contest down there in Belton over at UMHB, which was a really, really good game because we all know how athletic and how hard Duncanville plays.
Absolutely.
And they set out to try to shut him down, but really had a hard time. He had a lot of the Duncanville kids in foul trouble. So he's a bully, to say the least. So when he kind of gets going, he's a load. Really kind of, like I said, cleaning up his game as far as getting downhill. Probably needs to, you know, really work on the jump shooting aspect to become more consistent, but he does hit it. And, I mean, he's going to be a problem. Right now, Westlake is probably your front runner to come out of the region. I mean, you know, they're really, really going to be tough to beat. You know, although there are some really, really good teams in San Antonio, but with Westlake's size, got good guard play with Ian Mowat, and then they got Nakari Egan that's eligible over there for him right now. So he's a really solid kid as well that comes in at 6'7" as well. You know, they can kind of pass and score the ball inside. So he's tough.
Absolutely. So was Nakari been playing or not? Did he just recently get eligible?
He's been eligible for the entire time. I think, you know, with especially with how UIL and TAPS and different rules like that, you know, kind of come into play. I think the fact that he was already kind of in that zone, so to speak, was already eligible from the get-go, and he's kind of gotten off to a start. I talked to Coach a little bit about him because he comes off the bench for them, but he kind of settles into his role. They do some things, high-low wise, where they kind of get he and KJ involved together in the same situation, on the same side of the floor, and it poses teams problems just because of how physical they are.
Right. When I saw in the card, the school that he was at last year, the SPC school, I really did like his body, his physicality with his size, and it has a real intriguing skill set, can kind of spread a little bit and attack, slower footed forward. So, seeing him in addition to Austin Westlake, I did think that was intriguing to him and KJ front court. So I want to go off, go a different direction. Let's talk Houston for a little bit. I know you went and saw some games out in Houston. Just talk about games you've seen, the players that kind of stood out to you, and what you've been hearing.
So, with the pandemic, it's funny that you say that. So with the pandemic, with no tournaments, had to really be strategic about the schedule that we're trying to put together to go out and go see kids. They're actually going to get down there again next week. To go and go see a couple of kids that we've had on our radar before. But I actually saw Summer Creek and Shadow Creek play, which turned out to be a buzzer beater where kid, I forgot his name, wound up hitting it. I know Cam Arbery kind of got downhill, found him. In the later stretches of that game, it wound up being a buzzer beater, and they wound up winning that game by 3. So Shadow Creek is really, really good. I think you had a chance, like you said, to see them in the Classic that you saw them in, where they're playing 6 or 7 guys. But Coach President has those guys playing hard. I mean, they kind of get after you. They know what they kind of want to do, push you to areas on the floor to make it kind of uncomfortable, but then also run some really good stuff on the offensive end. So Ramon Walker was really solid in that game. The leading scorer in that particular game was the Arbery kid. He's solid. I mean, he kind of got to his spots, and I think he finished with like 32 on that particular night. He was in a row. Jalen Shannon, another kid that they actually have, shot the 3 really, really well for them. So actually, Summer Creek and Shadow Creek, I would not be surprised if there's some rematch down the road, depending on what districts they line up in as far as the playoffs, because I know at one point in time they were in the same district. Now they're opposite. But it would be real interesting to kind of see, kind of how all of that kind of plays out. Sean Jones is really good for Shadow Creek as well. Really, really long, good energy.
Yeah.
Got it off the glass and rebounded and actually pushed it up the floor a couple of times, but then ran the floor and really finished above the rim a couple of times. Had a really couple of athletic finishes, through contact that I thought, he needed to improve on coming into the year. It was always kind of like, this slasher 3-4 type kid, that really can kind of do certain things, but can he play through contact, which will translate to the next level? He's starting to show that he can kind of do that along with some expanded range. Cam Arbery, a kid who I just mentioned a while ago, really, really looked comfortable in his role like you had talked about before. Shoots it really good, as he always has, ever since I've seen him for the first time, playing with hard work with 6th and 7th graders. He's letting that thing go. And, I mean, he does it with consistency.
No, absolutely. Cam, like I said, just kind of stretching out a little bit more, really hitting his shots. Sean, I would say he did struggle at the Holiday Hoop Fest. I forgot to talk about him. Just overall, kind of got it going a little bit in the third quarter. One thing about Sean that I do see that I did like is when you're struggling offensively and your shot's not going in, he will pride himself more on the defensive end and on the glass, to try to get himself going. And that those are little things that will go a long way. Very talented, has a really, really strong physical profile. Just struggled. But that was the first time I seen him really struggle this season. So, guys have bad games. Talk about Amari Abrams as he goes to Summer Creek, correct?
Correct, yes. And so, for him, very, very fluid off the bounce. I mean, Shadow Creek knew this going into the game about his scoring ability, but, for him to still, be getting the extra defensive attention and still be able to kind of get to his spots, I thought it was real efficient. It wasn't just all about the 3-point game for him. I mean, he got downhill. He found guys. I really like his court vision as well. Showed some defensive ability, was kind of instinctive, got in the passing lanes a little bit, kind of create some turnovers for their benefit, and got out and finished, or he also created for other players. So I really kind of like his upside. Showed some leadership skills as well. You know, I mean, there was times because they were up maybe 6 or 8 or 10, and I saw Shadow Creek went on a big run, kind of got back in the game. But I saw him really kind of maintain his poise. He's got a young group that was kind of there with him, some other guys, that might not play at the next level on his group, but at the same time, he was doing a good job of really kind of leading those guys, keeping them composed to the point where they actually probably should have even won the game. I mean, they actually had every opportunity down the stretch to close it out, but just didn't.
Right. And that was a big time shot, whoever that kid that hit that. I didn't know who the kid was, but he had to shoot that from like over 30 feet. I mean, that was way beyond 3-point line. And shot it with a lot of confidence and it went in.
No doubt.
Definitely like a game, it had to go to. And Amari Abrams has been really impressive. In the summer, he was looking good. He was on the same club team as Terrence Arsenault, who's just climbing up, just slowly.
Yeah.
I know Terrence Arsenault actually came to a few of our camps. Kind of want you to talk about, the progress you've seen him make from a year ago to now, and what he's actually turning himself into.
It's ironic that you ask about him because that's my goal, is to get in there to go see him on Tuesday. They actually play against Crosby, who also has Sean Elgington and PJ Haggerty. So, again, trying to be strategic about games, you're going to see in the prospects matching up. Terrence is a definite player. We saw him in 3 out of the 4 camps that we had over the spring and summertime, and also the early fall. Long, athletic, gets downhill, when he wants to, and makes plays for others, but he doesn't have a problem scoring the ball at all, from a variety of levels. Shoots it with really good range, plays with really good energy. A kid that's going to fill up the stat sheet. I mean, he can rebound it, obviously, as you've seen, and push it and go to full length, but then also get downhill and like I said, make plays for others as well. So he's definitely a player. And I love, look forward to seeing him play, next Tuesday. As well.
So, my thing is in a ranking, he's like, he's kind of moved up. I know we have him top 10. Do you think he is potentially pushing to be a top 5 player in the state of Texas?
No question.
Yeah.
No question. When he chooses to turn it on, I mean, there's not really much. It's not really much you can do with him when he chooses to really kind of get it going. I mean, he has a really good feel. The thing I really liked about him, he doesn't really force a whole lot. And that's the things when I'm kind of looking at players, I'm like, okay, he's not extremely ball dominant, although he has the abilities to be able to be that type of kid. He doesn't have to be, and that's the thing I really like about him, because he doesn't mind sharing it, but that also he obviously has an understanding that kind of helps lighten his load to the point where if everybody else is playing, others honest, then, then he'll hit you. Anyway, I mean, like I said, long and athletic, is going to defend, block shots. I mean, anything you really kind of need to get done in order to be competitive, he's going to do it. So,
right.
Top 5 that's easy.
No, absolutely. I've really been impressed with Terrence when he came to the camp we had in June, and then got to see him just overall in the summer, and then kind of seeing the film from the fall camp. I mean, Terrence is just really scoring the basketball, shooting it a lot better. You can tell he's just really been working on his jumper, grew a little bit. And he, one thing about Terrence, interviewing him, he's such a great kid, and he's very honest, like with his answers. So you're not, and I have no problem with it, right? But I love to interview a kid that is just genuinely them, right? It's not like a kind of a rehearsal type deal, which is fine, but he just was genuine. It was honest. Like, though, it was a really, really good interview. He's a great kid, and he's just a worker. And he's just a kid, like when you see rankings early on, like freshman, sophomore year, and then people get so, angsty about it, it's going to change so much from their junior, senior year. Like, it's going to change. Absolutely. Like, this is not set in stone. And he was a kid that was in those rankings, but he wasn't that high up. I mean, he was in there, and you could see the potential, but you wouldn't have said he's a top 5 player in the state of Texas his freshman or sophomore year.
I think the thing that really kind of stood out for me, as we're talking about Terrence, is his versatility. I mean, just the fact, like I talked about earlier, just his ability to be able to distribute the ball and create for others. I don't have a problem or wouldn't have a problem sliding him over, into the point position, just kind of every now and then allowing him to be the guy. So from that standpoint, with his creativity and playmaking ability, it makes it very, very tough for opponents to really kind of game plan for him.
Absolutely. So who's some other, let's talk 2023 class a little bit. And you could be Central Texas, Dallas, Houston. Who are some guys in that 2023 class, even the 2024? Let's just go to both classes that have impressed you.
So the 23 class, we got Kendrick DeLuna here in the city of San Antonio. That's really, really solid. That has a lot of upside to him. 6'9", 6'10". Has the capability of being a double guy. Long arms, has good post skills, good footwork. So he's one. Zayden High is another one. At 6'7", plays the wing. Can really shoot the basketball. Really, really versatile. Can put it on the floor and make plays in a variety of ways. I mean, he stands out immediately. Mashai Hill. Mashai Hill is at 6'8", 6'9", at Pflugerville Hendrickson. And he's really, really talented. Has a body, as strong as an ox. He can catch it on the block, turn over either shoulder and finish. I mean, he's done a really good job. I've seen him twice now. I saw him early on in the year where teams were trying to double and triple team him, but, he's able to catch it and still finish through contact. So he has some ability. Still got some work to do, as most 23s do. But, he is one that his arrow's moving in the right direction. So you have him. Then you have Malik Presley and Caden Gums. Both of those kids are at San Marcos, and they are talented. I mean, with the Gums kid, he sees the floor, and plays the game with a lot of confidence. I mean, I really kind of like how he plays from the point position. No back down in him, two-way type kid. He's going to defend you, but then also go and try to get a bucket on you or also help his teammate get a bucket. Malik Presley is the one that I'm really impressed with the most. Long arms, 6'6", 6'7". Can defend multiple positions. Matter of fact, I had a chance to see him and Jamron Keller go head-to-head a couple of weeks ago when they were playing in San Marcos.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that was a really good one. And they actually wound up guarding each other. So I'm like, here's kids now, that are really getting after each other. But Malik Presley, is a do-it-all type kid, going to fill up the stat sheet, double-double type kid. But then also, is very unselfish. You were talking about how Terrence Arsenault's attitude and character is. This is another high-character kid that really has a chance to really do well for himself. For that 23 class, and then 24, I got a kid that I've seen a couple of times. Matter of fact, when he was younger, but then now really starting to lay eyes on him because he's actually getting about 17, 18 minutes on the varsity level, and that's Kalen Hargrove over at Harlan High School. Mm-hmm. Really, really solid guard. He was a standout in our cream of the crop camp that we had over in San Marcos last year.
Oh, so, yeah. Okay. Yeah. It ain't sounding very familiar then when you make the crop Southwest, the fake show. Yeah.
So, his defensive ability is what's really kind of standing out, getting him the extra playing time that he's getting because he has the ability to kind of get stops. But then for him, he's getting downhill, finding open shooters because the way Harlan plays, they got a couple of kids that aren't bad. Couple of 22s and 23s that really kind of shoot the ball really good for them. So they're really, really solid group, and he fits in really, really well with them. So he's really on the uptick. Cameron Jackson, another big kid that's out of Weiss High School there in Pflugerville, has a chance. I mean, he's about 6'6", 6'7", but he's a load. You try to get it, you get it to him. He's turning over either shoulder. He's going to finish. Has really, really good hands. He's another kid that we will have, in some of our camps, in the upcoming future. But he's definitely on our radar and has been for some time playing with that ASAC group. So he's really, really solid. Then we have Big Cameron Walker. So there's another Cameron involved in the situation. So we got Cam and Cam. So Big Cameron Walker over at Brennan High School is about 6'4", and he's been contributing, for Brennan really, really well. Another kid that's really, really strong in the post, rebounds it really well. Had a double-double the other night in a game that they wound up sneaking up and beating Steele.
Oh wow, wow.
Yeah. It's a lot of kids. They're really kind of coming up the ranks. Doing some really really good things. When you start talking about the 23 and 24 class, along with we keep talking about Keller, down there in Killeen, but there's some other ones, that are coming up as well.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna ask you this question. This kid out there, well, it's two of them. Have you had a chance to see Waco Midway play?
I was actually supposed to go watch them play last night. They are dealing with a COVID situation in San Marcos. So they've been kind of shut down. But the intent is to kind of see that. Matter of fact, they are playing against Waxahachie next Wednesday. So
okay.
It's on my schedule to actually go watch that one up in Waco. So they play Waco Midway. So especially going to go watch those two big kids play.
That's a hell of a game. You talk about there's two bigs out in Waco Midway, but with Cole Reed 2022 and Caden Powell 2022. Caden, they've been showing me some clips on practice, whatever, and he's looked really good. He's looking really good. He's a kid that I know is like a late bloomer, obviously just with bigs, period. But definitely excited to see him and see how he's improved, because towards the end of the club season, I won't say summer because we ended like in September, he was looking really good. And Cole Reed's another kid that 2022 out of Waco Midway that I'm really intrigued by. And, Waxahachie, they got the bully, CJ Nolan, Oklahoma signee. He was just a monster right now, and happy that he's recovering from his nose injury, and hopefully we get to see him and he'll be able to play. I know he's gonna have that Rip Hamilton mask on when he do come back and play, but definitely that's a really good matchup just with him, Jalen Lake, who's Colorado State. So definitely like to get your analysis on that after you watch them.
Yeah. No, eager to get in there and actually kind of watch that one. That's the other thing, again, going back to the whole schedule, having to really kind of look and see, okay, where are the best matchups at to be able to kind of evaluate kids. It's been challenging to say the least. I don't have nobody driving me around like, you do.
Yeah. Tim, it's been great having you, man. We'll definitely have you back. We know you're a part of the Texas boys basketball family with Ani and Alan Branch. Want to give you just a few kind of closing words before we let you go and we bring our next guest on.
Eager to really kind of get in and see a lot of district matchups that are coming up. We got a very interesting district, couple of districts that are going to come down to the wire here in the city of San Antonio, as well as Austin. A lot of district players getting ready to get kicked off. I know on Friday night, Westlake is playing Bowie, so that'll kind of get that district started off because they got, some really good kids on both of those teams. A lot of prospects, involved in that particular game. And then I know here, you got San Antonio Johnson that has a couple of players interested in seeing, how Hutto, who has a couple of players, 22, Caden Smart, who's been shooting the lights out for that one. I'm just interested in seeing, how a lot of these districts here are going to start playing out. So district play kicks off for some Friday night, some early next week. So it'll be fun.
For sure. Well, thanks so much again for coming on. Again, we'll have you back for sure. Enjoy your holidays. Stay safe when you're driving. I know you don't have a driver like Ani the Prince does, but stay safe when you're driving. I look forward to getting more great reports. And again, if you haven't followed Tim, he's a great follow on Twitter. Does a great job covering the state as well and helping promote the young man, not only in Central Texas, but across the state. So thanks so much again, Tim, and have a great holiday.
All right, I appreciate the opportunity. Now you guys stay safe.
Okay, thank you. All right, we got our man right there, Tim Littlefield from Texas boys basketball. We will have a quick break, and then we'll have our main man, Blue, the one and only. Okay, the one and only. If you have not heard Blue talk about basketball in the state of Texas, you're in for a treat. Blue's been doing it for a long time, has tremendous relationships and reputation, has done some outstanding work for Mike Kunstad and with Sam Lowe at Texas Hoops. And to me, Blue's added a whole nother element to what they do there. So I'll let him talk more about it. I could talk about him all day. He's a longtime friend, great man. He's a father. a husband, and he just does things the right way. So excited to have Blue on to talk about Texas hoops. We'll do a quick break, and then we'll be right back.
Welcome to All Access Coaches Corner, where our mission is to serve. Thank you for joining us for the All Access Coaches Corner podcast. We are so excited to continue serving coaches, sharing their stories, and spotlighting their programs. Stay connected as we bring you more special guests and more real conversations covering all aspects of the game. You can find our show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at allaccess_CC. Subscribe to the All Access Network YouTube channel and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
Blue, my man, how you feeling today, man?
Okay. I'm on day 5 of having COVID. So, you and I talked yesterday, and it's pretty weird, and just kind of a roller coaster over the last 5-6 days, and so yeah. But I'm here, and hey, if I fall over something, just DM Jamie, and she'll come up here and get me.
I definitely will. I'll get on that ASAP, man. We coming on. Didn't necessarily pull your arm to do it, but I appreciate you doing it for your health and where you're at, because you kind of wanted just a change in the monotony of just kind of being quarantined.
Yeah, it's so much better than being in bed. And over the last 5 days, I mean, I've been keeping up with the basketball online and so forth. And, I always feel much better when I get out of bed and stuff. And so doing this it will take my mind off of things. So it's good.
Absolutely, man. So talk about Texas hoops, man. Talk about what you do there, kind of how you got linked up. What is Texas hoops? Most people should know. But just talk a little bit about it, and then we'll kind of get into some of the things throughout the state.
I think it's pretty interesting because it's a company that's been together for 32 years. It started back in 1988 with Mike Kunstadt's vision of connecting the college coaches with with high school coaches in order to get involvement with the players for the college coaches, and then it turned into the summer league scene. And Mike Kunstadt went from the very beginning, when you could only have 3 players from the same team playing together on the same court during a summer season. And now it's progressed to this. I mean, the history of Mike in what I feel like what he has done for the game of basketball has been unbelievable. And some of the doors that he has opened for all of us to have a place in this basketball world. I think that Mike was one of the pioneers for that. Obviously, you would not be talking to me if it wasn't for Mike Kunstadt, and if it wasn't for Sam Lowe and their contribution to the basketball world. And I think that you see it more than ever in today's in our climate today, when it shows our relationship with the high school coaches, because they have been so accommodating. They have answered all of our emails or all of our text messages when it comes to sending us film so we can watch kids from different parts. And you just have to give a lot of credit for for that relationship that was built 32 years ago and that has continued to today. And it's I mean, I've been with the company since 2001, kind of as a runner at first, from 2001 to 2003, then 2004. You could call me part-time, full-time, whatever it was, but I've been basically since 2004. I've been with the company, and then officially full-time back in February of 2014 when I left teaching. And so it's been, I can't believe it's been that long for me that I've been associated with them. I mean, I used to take, my story might be a little bit similar to some and different, because I used to take San Antonio teams to the Great American Shootout back in the 90s.
Yeah.
I was always talking to Sam Lowe going, come watch my team. I got players. I always kid to this day that I was right about 3 of them. And it grew into a relationship that once I went to Stephen F. Austin, I was a manager at the Division I level. I was fortunate enough to be a recruiter at Division II in Kingsville. Then I had this opportunity. And so it's all just the experience that was given to me by somebody that had a lot of credibility. That's why I'm here, because of Mike Kunstadt.
Yeah, Mike, as well said, definitely godfather of this whole thing in Texas, to be honest, man. It really put Texas on the map in a totally different way as far as events and, like you said, connecting college coaches to the high school prospects. And so much love. And I played in the events back in the day. I think my brother may have been – so my brother graduated in 97. He may have played in some of the first like Tops in Texas events that Mike had. And then, for myself, I've played in events. I've worked the events as far as the scores table with you and
Yes.
for you guys back in the day, in my JUCO days. Before that, even I had I was in grassroots, so had teams playing in it. So just so many lives have been impacted by what Texas Hoops has done, and Mike Kunstad and Sam Lowe have paved the way to do. And I think you've done a great job adding another element to what they do. And you don't have to specifically talk about that now, but we can just talk about the state of Texas. You came out with some rankings recently. Those, but let's just talk about the state of Texas in general. Recruiting the state of Texas. Why is it such a place to recruit good players? How is it that so many? I think there's probably an average. You may know this better than I do, but I think there's an average of probably 70 kids that sign Division I per year. That's just the high school prospects. So just talk about a little bit about recruiting the state of Texas in general for those that don't recruit it or for those that are trying to get in.
Yeah, I think that's part of the history of the Texas Hoops and the Great American Shootout brand was to get that level of division, not just Division Ones, but we're talking about Division Twos, Division Three, NAIAs, and JUCOs into the state of Texas in order to sign, obviously watch, recruit, and sign players. And like you said, it could go. I mean, some years it's all the way down to about 80%. 80, 85 kids that will sign Division I plus the JUCOs. And I think the importance of it is that when you look at winning programs from across the nation, especially for us, when we talk to somebody from a certain conference, they'll always go, well, they have Texas kids. We want to get Texas kids. And I think when you go to certain pockets of the state, you have some guys that are really great basketball players. And even in today's class of the 2021, there's plenty of options out there because of the new strategy in recruiting that the college coach is going to have to take with their new NCAA rules. And so I think we're very rich with athletes in general. When you look at basketball, baseball, football, volleyball, you can go down the list. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of athletes from both the boys and the guy side of sports. Because I mean, when you're looking at the state as a whole, I guess we're competing with California, New York, Florida, Georgia is one of the bigger states that are always having. And I think when you have a large population, you're going to bring in and attract college coaches because there's just going to be much more to find in throughout the state of Texas. And so and we're very fortunate that people want to play in the Great American Shootout. Therefore, the colleges come to the Great American Shootout to watch the kids. And like you said, and I was going to add to your point, it's always fun when you learn and you bump into somebody that maybe I don't know or like I played in the Great American Shootout. Now they're an assistant somewhere or a head coach. That's really cool that it's been around for that long.
No, extremely. The Great American. Let's talk about the Great American. Hold on one second.
Well, the Great American Shootout was a year later after the start of Texas Hoops and the scouting report. So, like I mentioned earlier, the Great American Shootout was in that mix of time that you can only have 3 kids playing from the same high school on a team, and so you had players from you didn't have like maybe so much stacked teams at first, and so I believe like the story goes, and of course Sam Lowe knows the history like the back of his hand because he's lived through 25 years of it, and he's always said that they started with about 42 teams. Mike started with about 42 teams back in 1989, and we've peaked at around about 475 to 500 at one point. And so it's given a platform, I think, to a lot of college coaches and a lot of kids to come and play in front of a lot of fans, college coaches. I think a very important aspect of that is that there's some college coaches that are just great at doing their jobs, and they don't care what gym they're in. They don't care. They want to go cover the gyms. And I think we're also fortunate that we have a huge following from the non-Division I. So from spring all the way through the end of summer, you see the Division IIIs and the Division IIs when they're allowed to be out, and they're also a word of mouth coaches to get to the Division I's after whatever they see. So it's a big cycle and circle of trust that everybody has, and it's been for several years.
Right, and it's one thing. I'll let Ani come in and kind of talk rankings with you, but the last thing I'll kind of touch on with you real quick is not only the event, but the scouting process. There's so many players in the state that may not be on the radar initially or may not be as highly rated because there are so many good players. So people may come back to you and say, well, how is this guy not rated higher? How is this guy not this? And it's like, if you knew the quality of players in the state and the body of work that some guys have, and some guys are just late bloomers, and some guys get in the right situation at the next level where they're able to take off. Zaire Smith, for example. I can think about what's the young man's name that actually played for Stacy that went to Buffalo, C.J. Massenberg, all-time leading scorer at that school. I mean, there's so many different stories of guys that kind of like, well, where did he come from?
Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's huge. Jimmy Butler's huge. I mean, naming all of this. I mean, when you talk to Uri, Uri was he played for Uri, so Uri was always at the Great American Shootout. And Jimmy Butler sometimes was there, sometimes he wasn't. Sam showed up a couple times to a gym to go watch him play, and he was hurt, unfortunately. But that's the route he took. It's not. I don't think that. I think, and you and I kind of talked about this yesterday. It's a God-given gift when you're an NBA basketball player. When you're kind of stacked down there at the bottom, maybe you're 80 or 70, and then all of a sudden you burst out. Now you're at Marquette with Buzz Williams, and then you're going in the NBA draft. I mean, you're a special individual. That is special. It's not that anybody's fault for missing it. It was just the matter of time for some players to break out and to be who they are. And so, I get some arguments of, I remember this of Carson Edwards. Somebody questioned us about why had Carson Edwards ranked so high because their sons were beating up on him in the 7th and 8th grade. A little puzzling sometimes to think that you want to step back 4 or 5 years when we have to take the body of work of today and what we see. And you know what? We'll be the first one to admit sometimes we miss, sometimes we hit on it. And I will mention this, since I brought up Carson Edwards. David Martinez looked at me and said that we had it wrong because he said Carson was going to be a player and he was a high major player. We had him like in the 90s. And at the time, it was a freshman year, and Carson was playing football and basketball still. And you know what? David Martinez knew exactly what he was talking about. And so I just suggest to everybody listening, when David Martinez says something, you listen. Because he has not just been right on him in his program. And so there's a lot of great stories out there. There's some that you hit, sometimes you miss. I mean, we can go back to old rankings and go, wow, what happened to the development of this kid, where he went? I mean, when you look at the 2009 class, when you look at the 2018 and all of the transfers that happened in those 2 years, amazing numbers. And I mean, that's a whole different thing, whole different segment when you can get into old rankings and pull out. I think in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, just as we're talking about this, 11 out of our top 20 transferred.
Wow.
I mean, are you going to argue with?
So it's kind of like this, though, Blue. It's kind of like the NBA draft, though, right? You can go back and look at these guys are paid millions, right? These organizations, and they draft players, and sometimes players work out and they're great. And it's like, how did this guy not get drafted? Or how did this guy get drafted first and he wasn't any good? Or whoever it may be. You know, there's a lot of those kind of and it's a similar process, right? It's different, but it's similar in the fact of you're not always going to be right. The majority of the time, you guys are pretty spot on with a lot of things that you do because you're able to see these kids so much. But there's always going to kind of be those outliers of, hey, this guy was really high and then he didn't end up being what you thought he was going to be, or this guy was really, really low and he kind of took off. So just talk real quick before I bring Ani on and talk about your ranking specifically. What goes into the evaluation process for you guys? When you're talking about a guy being ranked this or that, what kind of goes into that formula, if you will?
I think the obvious is the athleticism of somebody. When you have the ability to jump, put your elbows on the rim, you're 6'10", you're going to be able to catch some eyes really quickly. So I just think that part of it is obviously looking for certain tools that a player might have. Some of it is kind of instincts also as an evaluator. You know, like I said, Sam has been doing this for 25 years. Mike Kunstadt's been, he can tell you about players from back in the 1960s and 70s and 80s. And that's where we learned from. And so part of the whole kind of stacking of rankings, I think it's great because it gives people a comparison to try to match up where they are. And so we try to just look for certain tools, the athleticism, the skill level, the ability just to make plays. I mean, not everything is based off of stats, because I don't really feel like some stats don't translate. When you're a volume shooter and you have the ball 75 to 80% of the time, my biggest key is, okay, if you shot the ball 25 times, which I've seen some stats like that, what happens when you're in college and you have only 8 to 9 shots? What do those 8 to 9 shots look, and where are they quality? I think us as fans, as spectators, as evaluators, as coaches, we can get really excited when we see a guy hit a 25-footer. Is that really a good shot? Is that a good decision-making shot? Is that does that translate? No, because your coach, how many times are you going to let a guy take a 25-foot shot? You know, and so there's just the certain decision-makings that go into the daily rankings. Recruitability, and recruitability it's a made-up word, I guess, but what kind of emotion are you showing? The negative or positive emotion that you're showing on the court? What are you doing in the classroom? I mean, there's a lot that goes into putting together a ranking and putting all this stuff together, that you find out little things about a player, or they publicly are letting things out there through Twitter, through social media, that are you gonna recommend a certain player to a college coach? And that you got to really think about that kind of stuff. And so, and like you said, there's just some guys that may go further down the list when it comes to rankings. You know, maybe they just have to go somewhere to a different environment, like a JUCO, get some experience, and then go forward. I mean, Ani, you and I could sit here probably for hours, along with Brian, and talk about all of those guys that were just JUCO players that went to Division I and got a scholarship. What's wrong with going to a low major or mid major? And especially this year, when it comes to maybe a little bit of the lack of recruitment that's going on at this time, I really feel like there's a little bit of a wall that's been hit, where there's not a lot of recruitment going down, but everybody has to stay calm, and it's a little bit of the inconsistencies that's going on through our basketball world right now. And I hope I answered your question about that. You know, that's and one thing for us, rankings, you can get caught up in them so quickly. Ani, maybe you have a little take on this too. When you start putting a number by a kid's name, people can go one way or another, and we're not always going to be right. And we know that we're not going to make everybody happy, but there's sections to this. Brian, you've seen it. There's sections to the rankings.
Right.
If you're in the 2022 class, you are going, and you're in the top 25, you are going to get high major looks. We've beaten this down, I think, but you have to think about that 2022 class. and think about how many. There's only 10 spots in the top 10. You can't put 20 people in there. You can't put 25 people in there. But if you're sitting there and having really good nights, top 20, top 25, top 30, college coaches are taking notice because there's going to be a dogfight for Cason Wallace, for Bryce Bridge, Lee Dort. There's going to be, and I've already talked to college coaches. We're not going to get this section, but let's focus on this. And where do I need to start recruiting?
Yeah, well said. I think the translation to the next level is kind of one of those things that, like you said, people may think in high school, well, I put up numbers. I did this against this guy. It just really what kind of gets evaluated so much is how much of that will translate to the next level. And even as a college coach, that's what we're trying to figure out. Like, okay, that you did that against these high school guys. And we don't want to discredit that, but does that equate to you doing it at this level? So that's a big part of the process equation. We'll talk at the end before you leave. We'll talk at the end about kind of the recruitment process this year and how strange it is and how different it is. We'll talk about that at the end. But you just came out with some recent rankings. I know Ani kind of wanted to talk about those with you. So talk about it. I'll pass it to Ani first and let him kind of segue into that.
I feel like I'm on a quiz show now, Ani.
Ain't that bad. Ain't like that.
Or I'm gonna have to call for a lifeline and call Sam.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. We got, next time you come on the show, we're gonna do that. Okay. But no, when you showed your 21 and 2022 rankings, I just wanted you to talk about some guys that have really risen with their play. Just kind of some notes, like from when you did the rankings, like, oh man, this kid's been doing this and doing that. So I just want to give your overall thoughts.
Yeah, we really came out with our rankings a lot later than we ever had before in the past. And so, you try to we were trying to put the rankings out and go, well, one more game. And then it just becomes a trend. And then you have to eventually say stop. And so, as I look down the list, I mean, it looks perfect, doesn't it? And so, just kidding. But, guys that are playing very well is like somebody like BB Knight. Mm-hmm. BB Knight we have at 37, which is pretty good, but this guy is strong at 6'4", 6'5", being able to handle the ball, shooting deep threes that are consistent, and that's within his game. And so I think it's just a matter of time before for the college coaches kind of really realize how good can he be because of this, like I said, of this deep class. I mean, how much higher can he be in when you look at all the guards that are in front of him? But he's obviously, I don't know if there's, like right now, if I pinpoint somebody that goes, oh, he should be number 12 instead of number 36. I just think that there's a lot more of guys that need to be recruited at a higher level than maybe what they're getting right now. When I'm just kind of sifting through here. And so, somebody that played well in front of us was like Jordan Williams from Houston State Baptist. We were at Houston Christian a few weeks ago. I mean, he's one of those stories that could be very successful because he's no longer on the football field. He's playing 100% basketball. We have him ranked 60, but physically, athletically, skill-wise, he can compete at a very high level. And so, he's a guy that definitely could move up the list. I heard you talking with Tim earlier, like Arsenault, where we have him at 9. Can he move up a little bit? Zuby Ejiofor, my goodness. Yeah. Let's go back slightly in time here when Damian Jones from Nacogdoches, who went to Texas, originally I think committed to Oklahoma and then went to Texas. He's that prototype. I mean, but probably a little bit more polished overall. And so you when you look at that top 10, where could there be some cracks and some movements would be with like Zuby continues to improve. Anthony Black is playing 2 sports right now. I don't know if they've been bumped out of the playoffs yet or not at Capella in football, but he's been playing at a high level, playing 2 sports. And there's a couple of guys that are doing that throughout the state of Texas that got the chance to do that this year. But Anthony obviously is doing it at a very, very high level. Cade Hornecker from Amarillo, you got to really give the kid credit. I mean, he's sitting there at 21, but he does the things that you expect him to do. Control the middle of the paint, block shots, rebound, run the floor, get some trash. Just because DeMonzie Woods is out there probably a little bit more active athletically, so he can go and get one a little bit quicker. But Cade is a guy that's like, you scratch your head a little bit going, okay, he's playing a lot better than, or could have a chance to kind of move up a little bit more when looking at the overall rankings. And so, there's Dallas Hobbs. Here's an interesting one, in my opinion. Dallas Hobbs has been a point guard. And it's not for me to say what position he should play, but the time that I saw him, Sam saw him last night, you put him off of the ball and you make him more of a perimeter scorer. He's got one of the best looking shots. He's skilled. He's got a little athleticism and bounce to him where why not push him off the ball? He looks so much better off the ball than he does with it in his hands at times because he's setting himself up. There's a guy that you're asking about, Ani, that could really make a jump in the next rankings that come out probably in late February in this class. And so we're trying to get as many. We'll start moving out of Dallas here after we get past Christmas to go get more evaluations from San Antonio, from Houston. And so, we're ordering film from the high school coaches and we're able to watch a lot of film, which is helping. And I think that question, the answer to your question may lie in like a month from now of who's really going to go, because, Monecki from Cy Ranch, he's 73. He's better than that. I mean, you look to see what Cy Ranch has done early on, and he's a big, part of their climb right now.
Yeah, you made it. You said some interesting names. The first two, with BB Knight, who's a kid early on. I really was impressed with. Saw him in 8th grade, even saw him freshman year, and then like you said, I don't know what happened. Just kind of just a little bit. The class is just so strong and it's just so talented. So you kind of haven't heard that name in a long time. But last year when I did see him, even something like you said, kid with his size that can really shoot it, got good positional size, and I'm happy to see that he's really performing. When I go back to Houston, that's someone I gotta watch live again.
And they're a good basketball team, so that obviously is going to help because they have a lot of pieces around them too.
Right. Perfect. And then you talk about Jordan Williams. It's one of those things. I thought he was going to potentially just go the route of football. Was always a talented basketball player, but it's really good to hear. And I did hear that he was going just straight basketball now. Like you said, a kid with his size, athleticism, body, and he's more skilled than kind of, I think sometimes football players get put in this box of, just more athlete than basketball player. And I think he's a better basketball player than originally given credit.
What also helps his case is that he was a quarterback. I mean, so he's a guy that's mentally tough, mentally ready, a floor leader. There's so many boxes that are checked off because of his time on the football field. And so obviously it's a little bit easier for a quarterback to translate maybe to a point guard position when you look at the two sports, and should be interesting to see what happens over, the next cycle of the next year.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk to you about DeMonzie Woods. He is a kid that I believe he made a big jump in y'all's rankings. This current one. I just want to get your thoughts on that. And I don't know too much about his story. If you kind of know, I just want to he's always been there, but it seemed like he grew, and then just everything just started coming together a little bit.
The first time I recall seeing him was probably I think with Tony Johnson in the Dallas Mustangs at a Great American Shootout, and then I was so intrigued by it because that was his freshman year. So then in his sophomore year, wound up going. He was on varsity his freshman year, so saw them like in Allen. Holiday Classic at the In-N-Out, and so very athletic. I believe at one point, and I'm not too sure if he still does, if he ran track. which would make sense. The upper body, high jump, and so forth. But he, especially this past fall when watching the Amarillo, that body is already for the high school ranks, is already at this 8 or a 9.
Right.
He still has another year of high school. Then he's going to go to a college program. He can really, when he gets it going and his motor's running, he can really be an animal on the rim. And he's one of those guys that can go get it, because he's going to be able to get from point A to point B within a second to go get a rebound and get the put back. I saw him a couple weeks ago against Lake Ridge when they were in town, the Amarillo, and just kind of the scoring was spread out between Hassan, Christie's, and DeMonzi, along with Cade. But, you can always tell, like, that athlete that's out there making plays at the right time. And so he's got a lot of ability, and he's going to, if he went into any type of high level basketball, he's like that power forward athletic guy that's going to go eat up the basketball off of misses and get a lot of rebounds and be a defender.
Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about, I know you've been to a lot of games, especially in the area. Who's some kids just off the top of your head that's kind of really stood out? Maybe that we're not really that I know you guys know, but just some guys that probably haven't been talked about more.
Yeah, I mean, y'all could have touched on any of these guys within the last couple of weeks, but Denton Braswell with RJ Jones. I watched him against Southlake. It took him a little bit of time during the first quarter. He's just missing shots. They weren't going in. But man, when he comes off that dribble and he's able to knock down shots, it's smooth. It's great release. Everything's a power dribble, rising up above the defense, and then being able to hit open shots on the behind the arc. Bring the ball up as an extra ball handler. He's a guy that I am really interested to kind of see a little bit more within that 2023 class and see what where he'll wind up. I mean, we're still about another month or so away from our 2023 rankings. And like I said, we're getting a lot of film just to make sure that we get everything covered. I know you've had to touch on, Case and Wallace, but you talk about, you have elite and then you have elite talented defenders. I mean, when he is consistently chasing, turning, and recovering on defense or playing defense in the transition game, and he's getting up with two hands. Oh, we were at the game at the Frisco Memorial game together. He's up challenging shots with two hands and blocking it on possessions. You don't see guards at the point guard position do that often. It might happen every once in a while, but that's his game, to go challenge everything that he does out there. Looking at Mansfield Timberview, this was pretty interesting. Cameron Taylor for Timberview was the first game of the season. He was actually the main ball handler for them, going off ball screens and doing some things. He's really showing off his skill. 6'6", 6'7" length. I mean, he's one that could really turn the corner and maybe catch some more eyes and get a good offer. Frisco Memorial, Drew Steffi. Wow, that guy. He goes out there and competes, and I think that in his head he's playing out there going, "I'm better than you," but he's not. The times that I've seen him recently, he's not out there verbalizing it. He's playing and he's backing it up with his game. And you and I have both seen it multiple times that he's taken it to some of the top players in the state. Yeah. And so, some other guys that what's that?
No, I said go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna. Kind of going through some of the list. And I know Tim had mentioned DeLuna from San Antonio Cornerstone. I don't think that he's even really touched the surface yet. In terms of of how good he can be. I think that he has shown some skill in some like defensive weak side help to go cover the blocks and rebound and block shots. I think that he's got a lot of scoring ability, and I don't not sure how much. When I saw him a couple weeks ago, he hardly touched the ball, but I think that when he gets the ball in the middle, he knows what he's doing with that. He knows what he's doing with the basketball.
Oh, for sure. Kids you mentioned, especially RJ Jones, who's actually had I know he did really good at Pangos, and saw him at Woodland, and haven't got to see a scholastic season game, but just been hearing a lot of good things, been seeing a lot of good things from him. Like you said, once he gets that dribble and that pull up and shots start going in, and just real smooth and effortless. And RJ's just a kid that I didn't have him really highly ranked early on, but really has made some strides. You definitely see the talent. And it's like I made a statement early in the show about, rankings, especially at that age, like 2023, 2024 is right now. It's going to change so much.
Oh, yeah.
Junior, senior year. So, but it's always interesting to see the people that get so.
Yeah. If I can jump in, we talked about Arsenault, and Tim talked about him. He's getting a lot of the attention, obviously, at Beaumont United. He's averaging nearly 24, 25 points a game, which is incredible. But Wesley Yates is a dude, and so he's that just the thickness and physical body that he brings, and he's been fun to watch too on film.
Yeah. Wesley Yates is what came to one of our camps. I like just really shot the piss out the ball. Like I said, his body, his frame, he kind of put the ball on the floor and make plays. You got him with Terrence Arsenault, Traylon Portier, another 2023 out there that's been really solid. So that's a really, really, really strong group. Another kid I really liked and thought that just really improved throughout this, the past 6 to 8 months. It's been Alexander Mekwe from McKinney. Really, really like him. Really grew on me. Just big time wingspan. Effort, motor, athleticism. You talked about when you're looking at a kid, athleticism. One of the first things you'll look at is athleticism, and he definitely pops out.
And as I look at some notes over here, so when you look at Alex and you look at DeMonzi, there's so many kids. Robert Jennings, obviously so well. You can put these guys in a certain bag, and they're all the same. A little bit separates them here and there, but Alex also benefits from being on a really well-coached team and has those pieces around him that allow him to be who he is and be that spring, be that leaper to go get it. Getting the backdoor alley-oops, getting above the opponents to finish. And so it goes to show you when you're part of really good teams what that may look like. It's an easier transition in your mind to go, oh, that's what it will look like in college.
No, absolutely. And I think that's where you made a great point, just being on a really good team and him being able to do what he does best kind of shows you, okay, this will translate. If he goes here and goes there, been getting coaches calling me about him. But like I said, that 22 class is so deep. Some of those kids you have like or 45. Like you talk about Dallas Hobbs who's going like potentially make a big jump. You just see a lot of guys from like 26 to 50 that in previous years and some of the class that aren't as deep would be a top 20 kid. If I top 20 kids. So that 22 class is just really, really deep. And we could talk about them today.
Yeah, and when you look at the 2021 class, obviously we, as you just mentioned, Ani, as you kind of just see more and more of these kids, it makes it a lot easier evaluation. I think that's one thing of the rankings that we did not talk about is as you see kids more often and as you see them grow maturity-wise, by the time they're senior, you get just a better feel in your even as an evaluator, the confidence level that you have to say, this is where this kid needs to be. And one kid that I want to touch on in that 2021 class, so we're not leaving them out, is DJ Richards. That guy has put together great basketball this year at Side Creek. And I think it's a little bit of what people were waiting for and for that outburst from him. But he is the main focal point of that team, and he's proven it on a daily basis that he can go out there and score. He's going to get around the edges. He's going to hit jumpers.
Right.
He's been really good.
Transition out. You closing words, and then we'll wrap up with Blue. A couple more.
Definitely, Blue. Appreciate you being on the show. Appreciate you as always. Every time I see you in the gym, we get to talk about basketball and just prospects. And, I pick your brain. I don't know if you know.
It's Brian. It's always one of those instances that we're walking out of the gym, you're like, "Oh, you were here?" It's opposite sides of the court, but it's we're always at some of the same games when he's not coaching. So,
right.
It's fun getting to know everybody, and it's good stuff out there.
No, absolutely.
I got to put on his other hat, Blue. He's got to put on his coaching hat.
Yeah, I got to put on my coach's hat.
Coaches.
Is Taco ranked number 1 in the state in power rankings?
And what power rankings?
Team power rankings.
Team power, no. Homeschool power rankings for sure, but definitely not team. We get in there. That's the goal.
Real quick before you go, Ani, we got a comment from Stacy. He says, really enjoying and appreciation watching Ani and Blue from 2 different services talking basketball and sharing knowledge with each other about our basketball community. This is what it's all about. Making sure that we're connected and all showing love, because we're all about the kids and all about covering the state and doing the best job we can to help these kids go to the next level and help the coaches get the right players in their program. So, Ani, go do your thing. Tell Third Kid we said what's up, and enjoy yourself.
He'll probably be halfway asleep when I pick him up. So,
all right, man. We'll see you next week.
See you.
We won't keep you too long. I know you're not feeling the best. We appreciate you toughing it out and just wanting to be with us today, man. But let's talk a little bit about some of the teams. We've talked players. Let's talk some of the teams across the state. I know that's a big state and there's a lot of teams. So whoever you'd like to highlight in that, and then also we'll end with kind of some of those recruiting questions about how to navigate this new pandemic.
Yeah. I think to touch a little bit on what I said before, the inconsistency of the season is going to be very interesting as we get to district, because we can sit here and talk about Duncanville and Waxahachie and Beaumont United and Fort Bend, Hightower, all the top teams. But I think that what will be interesting to see are those teams that nobody's talking about right this very minute, that because they're under the radar, because they might be a little bit in quarantine, they might have missed a game here or there. And like Klein Forest is sitting at 4-0. They've been in quarantine for a couple of weeks. They've had some really good outings. They've had their football players come back and have it. Marion Williams and Albert Thomas both went to the football field during their senior year. And Marion came back for 2 out of those 4 games and played. Albert Thomas waited for the season to finish, and now he's on the basketball court. He hasn't played yet, which kind of helps a little bit to get him back into basketball and get them going, as I believe they start later on this week. And so a Kerry Black team at Klein Forest, how can you just root against them? They're starting 4-0. Now they're going to get all 2 of their main pieces back that are experienced seniors. Those are the kind of stories I think that are going to kind of push during the second half of the season. I mean, if you can call it a second half. Once we get into district play, those types of stories I think are going to be unfolding as I hope that we get to the consistency of being able just to go out there and play basketball. Even when you look down, go out west, El Paso, obviously, we know has had a lot of trouble. And so their games have been hit and miss and stuff. And so there's always going to be somebody coming out of El Paso. We don't know which of that team's going to be yet, but in Region 1, there's going to be somebody that's going to emerge out there. When you go out toward Abilene High, sitting there, like I believe at 8-1-ish, Justin Reese doing a great job, has a really good unsigned senior in Jalen McGee, who's averaging about 20 points, who was the offensive player of the year of his district a year ago. He has him back. And so there's pretty good basketball being played, even in Edinburgh. I wrote this down. Edinburgh Ecamides is another team that's like 9-2. They have Ray DeLeon. He's averaging 30 points. Now, traditionally, are they going to make are we going to see somebody from Edinburgh and from the South region get to state? I just think that there's a lot of teams that people aren't focused on right now because of the inconsistencies of what's going on. And I think that that's really going to be beneficial for some of these teams moving forward.
Yeah, talk about teams that now. Talk a little bit about maybe the smaller level, maybe private school, 3A, 2A, maybe some of the off the radar teams that maybe don't get celebrated as much before we kind of get to some recruiting talk. If you don't mind.
You know, I'm going to give credit to Calvert and Michael Thomas. He coaches his son, Michael Thomas Jr.
Yep.
And they have, for being
Henry Thomas, the famous legendary coach from in Texas and in
Louisville.
Yeah.
I never seen him not smile, so I don't know when he's having a bad day because I don't think he ever does.
No, he never does.
But Calvert's gone and they've played Martins Mill. They've played Lipan. On the road to those two places, going to Munster this weekend, they are putting together a type of one of the best schedules as possible at the lower level that you can possibly get, because their focus is, of course, for March. Right. And so when you look at even those teams that they're playing, those are the traditional teams that are still winning to this day right now. And so
his son's a pretty good player. Howard's a good player himself.
Well, I'm sorry?
His son. You mentioned his son?
Oh. Yeah. So, MJ, Michael Thomas Jr., he's one of the top 2023 in the class at 6'6". I mean, it's been reported that he has an offer from Oklahoma State. It was reported that Coach Thomas himself said that A&M, being down the road there from Calvert by an hour or so, we'll eventually take a look at him, or if they haven't already. He's just it's a little bit different brand of basketball when you get to those lower levels, but it's fun and exciting. And I encourage anybody that's never been to a state final or never tuned in, when you're looking at those smaller groups, they are they love their kids and they love their basketball and their sports overall. I think that you have to also look at the tradition of Munster and what Lynn Cook has done out there with 3 state appearances over the past 6, 7, 8 years. Their season's so much different because they have to wait for their football players, or they can't play basketball in order to get games in. And so those lower level are going to start really ramping up their schedule here in December. Probably not getting as many games in because of the lack of showcase and the lack of tournaments that they can play in. And so I think that those types of teams are going to start showing a little bit more of their colors here in the upcoming weeks.
Right. So we got one question we'll get to, and then we'll let you go with a recruiting question. We got a question from Daryl Richardson.
Oh, Daryl.
Yeah. What's up, Daryl? He says, how do you think the hold on Northeast ISD basketball will have down the road in the San Antonio area?
Northeast, it's San Antonio O'Connor was a name being thrown around last year as the sleeper of the playoffs once it began. And I wish I could remember who they beat the first round or two, but they were right. And then they returned all their seniors, and they're a top 2 team behind, when you look at public schools in the UIL, behind Judson and O'Connor. And I actually have in our huddle, I have the Judson O'Connor game ready to watch today. O'Connor beat Judson. I think in San Antonio, Judson's ranked number 1 in the city, but you look at that. You look at San Antonio O'Connor specifically, and anytime you're senior heavy, anytime you have experience coming back the next year, they were talked about at the end of the season and they're talked about now. Those are the kind of teams that kind of makes their little push there. And so they deserve a lot of respect with what they're doing and what they've accomplished early on. Because I believe they're an 8-1 team right now, and they're 9-2. So they've really they're holding up their part of the bargain of being a team that, you know, in that Northeast district. So I think once we get into District Glen to San Antonio, I'll be headed down to San Antonio finally after the new year to go watch all of these teams, just because there's a lot of great basketball being played down there. And but it's just like anything else, there are some teams that haven't been able to play a full schedule yet. San Antonio Johnson's another one that you have to look at that has been consistent throughout the last couple of years as one of the main teams that are going to give people trouble.
Right. So let's talk about, you've mentioned it a couple of times on this show, and we'll kind of let you go with this. The recruiting aspects. So you talked about not being able to go to games, and you're watching a lot of games on film. So talk about that process for you, and then, you know, what suggestions do you have for, and I know this is probably a difficult question to ask, what suggestions do you have for those high school seniors that are trying to figure out the recruiting process right now? Obviously, with us being shut down or college coaches being shut down to go recruit makes it hard. Not to mention just the lack of scholarships that will be available this year.
Yeah.
Also really hard. So just talk a little bit about the recruiting on your end, and you're watching games and your evaluation process, and then also just recruiting in general right now.
Well, let's talk about the recruiting first, since you just brought that up, and you touched on it. I think, one, we have to be truthful about it.
Yep.
You have us as being able to talk freely. It has to be an honest conversation, and the honest conversation comes to this. Brian, I know you've talked to college coaches. They are, and I have. They are strategizing on what is next.
Yep.
They're trying to get through a season just like a high school team is. They're trying to decide who they're going to bring back, what scholarships they're going to have. Are they going to pick up? I was talking to somebody yesterday. Are they going to be able to pick? They have 2 seniors. If they keep the 2 seniors, are they going to be able to pick up 2 more and oversign? Like, what are the complete strategies? And I don't. And I think that for the college coaches, you know, when they're getting tested every day, they're trying to make sure that they're going to play, at least get a game in. They go game by game. That old cliche, I think, is really a big part of what they do today. They're trying to go game by game and get those games in. And right now, recruiting is at a standstill for a lot of teams, for a lot of players. I'm sorry. There's a lot of great players that we could list off right now in the class of 2021. Your time is coming. I just think the patience and to have real dialogue and to be open-minded, to be talking to non-Division I coaches, when Division II's called, Division III's, NAIA's, JUCO, I think it's worth a hard listen. Might bruise some egos, but that's okay. Something is put in place in front of you that is a gift. You never squash a gift, a friend told me. You always have to listen, and I think that's because not all Division I's know what direction they're going. They can't tell you today because it's going to be different tomorrow. If you're Duke in North Carolina, that's a little bit easier, right? But when you're talking about guys that are in that mid-major to low major, they don't know who's going to transfer. They don't know who are they going to try to go older? Are they going to try to go get a couple of high school kids? And I think there are some smart ones out there. There's some college coaches I've talked to recently that are going through and calling the high school players because they're like, you know what? We can go after a high school kid and we feel like we can sneak one out. And so that, I think, is some of the mentality of some of the coaches out there. But like I said, it's right now it's a little bit of a standstill. You don't see a whole lot of kids throwing out on social media that they get an offer and like boom, 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 they got 5 straight.
Right.
You're not seeing that right now. And so I think patience, putting aside some ego, and look at the gift that's in front of you, that when you get that phone call, no matter what level it's from, is very important.
And we've talked about it on this today, and we've talked about it many other times. Everyone's path is different, right? And if you love this game, you may have to be open to a different route, whether it's JC, whether it's prep school. You may have to be open to a different route. And I do think, although coaches want to stay old, and that's kind of one of the comments that somebody just made, I believe, in the comments, it is important to stay old. So the comment was by creative coach Mike Lopez. They want to stay old and get old either way. And I think there's a lot of that, but your whole entire roster can't be old.
Right.
The whole roster is old. Now you have different issues with your locker room, right? You still want to have some continuity. So I do think there's still a place for high school athletes to still be able to stay open and still, like you said, look at the fruit that's in front of you to take advantage of that. But it's just going to be – it's kind of like playing games right now in the pandemic. It's going to be different than we've ever seen. So you have to be open. Social media wasn't a thing before the pandemic. Excuse me. All these videos weren't a thing before the pandemic, and now it is, right? Social media wasn't a thing in recruiting 10 years ago or so. So it's always kind of evolving, and I think as long as we're all open to evolving with the times, I would just say keeping an open mind, but making sure the most important thing is that you're getting better as a player. Yeah. When you have your opportunity, you're actually able to take advantage of it, whatever level that may be.
And you'll be able to answer this question is because how many times have you gone into a meeting in March or April with your player, and especially if you have a really good senior this year and they got that extra year, you're going to want to keep them. But college coaches too. I can't speak from you can speak on this. Is that the college coaches are going to have some really hard conversations with some seniors today that have an extra year, and some of those are going to be, yeah, you want to go overseas and play, you should take that opportunity and go sign that contract. That's where the opportunities will start opening up also for those high school kids once the seniors have made those decisions too, and that the colleges have made the decisions on what they're opening. And you can speak more on that because you've been in that room when those sometimes hard conversations happen, or sometimes those conversations of moving on for a contract overseas or something is a great opportunity.
And I think to not only contract overseas, but also that internship job opportunity that may be paying great money. It's like, hey, you have an opportunity. So not only that, but I think coaches always have this plan in their mind. We're going to do this, but then a player may also surprise, hey, coach, I'm deciding I'm not going to play anymore, or I'm going to go into the portal. There's so many things that's going to happen. I think one of the best things the NCAA is doing, if it goes through as they said they are, is having a deadline of when you have to decide if you're or not. So now that deadline hits, and now people know, okay, I have 5 scholarships, or I have 2 scholarships, or we have none, or whatever it may be. So that makes it where now you can kind of figure out, okay, now how do we fill in the rest of our roster, whether it's transfers, whether it's high school. I think that will help the process not drag out so long.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of the unknown.
Yep.
There's a lot of the unknown. I think we can kind of sum it up with that and for just be patient, because we got to also see what's going to happen in April. And unfortunately, one open period was already taken away. However, we can focus on the second one, right? And there's going to be opportunity for kids that are playing. They're not lost. It's just a little slow right now.
Right. And last thing, the process for evaluating during this time, watching film. We'll end with that, and then just any last words you have before we let you go. And we definitely hope you feel better too. Oh yeah, I'm getting better. This kind of stuff just helps, not just laying around. I don't like doing that, but evaluation has obviously changed for us and the way that we're attacking it. I was set. Sam Lowe and I were set to go on the very first opening day of the season to Houston. We had 7 games each that we're going to be able to go see through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or was this Friday, Saturday? I'm sorry, we had 7 games combined that we're going to go watch. First 2 were canceled. I mean, how bad is that? It's one thing when we live here in Dallas or whatever city that you live in to navigate to the next game. But once you start stepping out
of your own city and travel. It makes it really hard. And as you look through games that are being canceled, it's some of the teams that you want to see. Our stance, like I mentioned earlier to you before, Mike Kunstadt's the relationship bubble that was started with the company is really, showing how strong those relationships are today, because we're able to pick up the phone, we're able to text or email, and the high school coaches are very willing to send us film to our Huddle account, and that has been so helpful. Not that they haven't in the past, but we've had to ask a lot more than usual. So I think an advantage is that we were able to get 10 Great American Shootouts in. We were able to get to see multiple teams, multiple players. So when you watch them on film, as you have many times, when you've seen a kid and you watch them on film, you get more the sense and you have that experience of what they really look like on the court if you were courtside. A little bit different when you haven't seen a kid and you're trying to squint. You're like, maybe he's 6'3", is he really 6'4", whatever the case may be. But since we have put our eyes on so many, we're very fortunate to have put our eyes on so many kids, whether it was me, Sam, Mass, Derek watches games, but no matter who it is, we're able to sit there and give a really good judgment on our evaluation when we watch. And so I think that's just been very helpful. And I think my last word would be giving a huge thank you to all those high school coaches that we have contacted. I mean, I already have a soft spot for educators anyway. I'm a former educator. I come from a family educator. My wife is in it. And they're more than basketball coaches. They're still dealing with everything that is going on in the classroom. And then they're having to, whether bus to games and so forth. I mean, they're doing the best job they can. And then you take away their competition when they're quarantined for 2 weeks. It really puts a damper, I think, a little bit on what they, as a coach, of what they're trying to get accomplished and compete and teach kids how to fight through adversity. And I just want to applaud them for everything they've done. Thank them for their help on our end, and their communication and our communication with each other has been at a very high level. And it's I think that the coaches need to know that they're very well appreciated of what they do, not just on the basketball court, but in the classroom.
No, that's really well said. And, just helping lead these athletes through these times, even talking to a few coaches myself, just kind of having those conversations, asking advice, asking opinion, because it is difficult times and it's unprecedented times. So to be able to lead, not only, like you said, on the court, but in the classroom, and help these young men and women mental health wise to figure out how to get through this and stay positive and fight through that adversity, like all coaches talk about. And you're doing the same right now. So appreciate you fighting through to come on today. I know you wanted to, and we wanted you to. Meant a lot, and I hope it gave you a little bit of a boost to talk some hoops. And I hope you feel better, man. Happy holidays. Anything planned for the holidays? You got to tell us one funny dad story real quick before we let you go. You are an awesome invested dad. We got to celebrate dads. That's cool. Tell us one dad story.
I got a funny dad story. So it's not reckless, but it's pretty funny. Yesterday, Jamie and I, my wife, we go take the kids for a walk, and they ride their bikes. Well, yesterday's a little bit, it's probably 6:30, so it's dark. And part of our street is cut off. And so it's very safe, but there's still cars that come in to go to their houses halfway up the street. So Britton, my 5-year-old, is riding his bike. He has training wheels, but he's jumping off the curbs and showing me, look how fast I can go. Look, I can jump off the curbs. I'm like, okay, let's stop that. Now he's riding around, and then I got to push him over to the side because there's cars coming, and I have to tell him, their cars are coming. We're no longer going to do this. We're going to get back onto the curb. And he looks at me and goes, Daddy, they see me, they just go around me. And so that is my son in a nutshell. I love it. He's Blue 2.0, and he when I come up to the office upstairs, he's with me. He's got his little desk. He's got all of his stuff that he does along me. I have a little light that I turn on. He's got his little light. It's awesome being a dad and to have I understand my mother now and my dad when they said that, you know what, and one day you're gonna have a son just the way you were. It's gonna turn you gray. It's pretty funny. It really truly does. And so that's my funny little dad story from yesterday. Of, hey, they'll look out for me. I don't need to watch out for them. I'm not. I took him out. I took him out, and we went inside.
I love it. He's invincible already. Well, enjoy the holidays, man. Much respect. You know that. I hope you feel better and have a great holiday season.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, man. Thanks, well, that wraps up episode 5. Blue, one of the best. Awesome to have Tim on and tell his story. He's been in grassroots forever. Ani, of course, giving his expertise before he has to go put on his coaching hat. Thanks so much for joining in. Of course, you can subscribe on our YouTube page, All Access Network, and get updates there. The social media, as far as the Twitter for All Access Sports Media, is allaccess_SM. And then we are also on Facebook and also on Instagram at All Access Network. So thanks so much again. Stay safe, everybody. Hope you have a great holiday. We will have one more show next week, I believe. We're kind of on the fence of that. It sounds like Ani thinks we want to go for it. So Wednesday, we'll have one more show before the holiday, and then we'll take the following week off. But again, stay safe. Tell your loved ones you love them. Be great and be grateful. We'll see you next time.